Welcome to the opening day luncheon and keynote sponsored by MDA Space. Please welcome to the stage Satellite and GovMil Space guest host, Sarah Credis.
Hello everyone and welcome to Satellite and GovMil Space 2026. I don't know whether you can believe it or not, but this is actually our 45th anniversary, which means this conference is older than some of us in the room, which is quite crazy. But as with every year, this is going to be an incredible event, and it's my privilege to be with you once again as your host. This is actually my second time at SATShow Week, and I'm not just saying this, I genuinely love this conference, from the breaking news to the conversations that are had here and also the networking opportunities. And my challenge to you this week, as it was last year, is to try and make 5 new connections. Networking and connections is key in this industry, and particularly if you're a young person in this room, this is a fantastic conference to make those 5 connections. So I'm going to try and make 5 new connections, and I hope you can too. So we're about to kick off the starting speakers, and I can't think of any 2 better companies to kick off SATShow Week than MDA Space and Amazon Leo. And I'll be having a conversation with Chris Webber of Amazon Leo shortly, but it's now my privilege to introduce our first speaker for today's program, Mike Greenlee, Chief Executive Officer of MDA Space. Now, Mike, a round of applause, you can go ahead. Now, and any of you returning will know Mike was with us last year and is just a fantastic person within the industry. Now, Mike leads a global elite team of more than 4,000 employees. And under his leadership, MDA Space has invested in one of the world's most diverse portfolios of next-generation space technologies and solutions, including its flagship software-defined satellite product line, MDA Aurora. So before we welcome Mike to the stage, let's take a look.
There we go. Good afternoon. Welcome again to Satellite here in Washington. As mentioned, I'm Mike Greenlee. I'm the CEO of MDA Space, and this is the 3rd year that I've had the chance to open up this luncheon with a few remarks. It is nice to have a steady job. 2 years ago when I spoke about MDA Aurora, introducing this as a new product from MDA Space into the marketplace as a new digital satellite, software-defined digital satellite with dynamic beamforming, at the time coming into the market in its broadband configuration to support next-generation broadband networks, such as with our anchor customer on that, the Telesat Lightspeed network. A year ago, we were able to introduce a subsequent version of that product, the direct-to-device version, to be able to bring direct-to-device communications to the marketplace and work with space network operators around the world on a next-generation digital satellite for direct-to-device communications. This year, as you've seen from the video, we're in the position to talk about and show visual evidence of our advanced manufacturing facility for the MDA Aurora satellite. As we enter into 2026, construction has been completed, and we're now setting to work all the various steps in the assembly process to be able to have that facility be delivering now this year at a pace of up to 2 satellites a day, 400 satellites a year, of digital satellites in production moving forward. So this is an outstanding capability that we're very proud of, that we get to bring to the marketplace. Throughout the year in 2025, we completed the acquisition of SATShow, our space-grade digital ASIC manufacturer, so that we're now in a position to have our in-house chip manufacturing, design and manufacturing capability, and be able to be vertically integrated on this digital satellite product line, right down to the chip level. And we're in manufacturing for those now. We're starting to receive the first outputs of that manufacturing process just 8 or 9 months into that integration, with the first of up to 10,000 chips that'll be delivered for our current programs coming forward into production here as we go through the next several months and year. So the evolution of MDA Space continues. It's very exciting to be able to live through that. For, as mentioned, over close to 60 years now, MDA Space has been a satellite component and subsystem, a manufacturer to the satellite industry, delivering to over 450 missions. And now, in the last 5 or so years, becoming a satellite prime with the MDA Aurora product for low Earth orbit and LEO and MEO constellations. And with that work and working with the various space network operators, now really feeling ourselves getting to more of an end-to-end satellite solution for space, with digital satellites, now moving into digital terminals, and all the software that makes all that work together. So it's awesome to live that evolution. As the CEO of MDA Space, it's been very cool to see and feel the company and the satellite systems teams that are here today be able to respond to the shifts in the market that we've experienced over the last few years, and be able to keep up and do our very best to help lead in these areas. The first shift that we really got to respond to with the evolution of MDA Aurora was the shift of the space network operators to direct-to-device communications, and being able to provide a really solid product into the S&O market, so that people could have a very powerful satellite being able to produce at high volumes of production, to be able to meet the needs of what has become in a pretty competitive neighborhood in terms of people wanting to get direct-to-device space networks operational as quickly as possible. Well, we're seeing a new shift now. The latest shift is actually geopolitical. And the words security and sovereignty keep coming up now in conversations. In addition to our ongoing conversations then with S&Os, we also now are starting to get pulled into conversations around neutral host networks as a potential new thing, or more important thing to talk about for some folks that are interested in security and sovereignty. And we're finding that the MDA Aurora product has a solid role in a neutral host network model. With the power of dynamic beamforming, so high volumes of continually adjustable beams, being able to provide a service to mobile network operators that want to expand their networks or fill in the gaps in their network coverage terrestrially. And with dynamic beamforming, being able to target those beams of service directly where they need to be able to extend or to fill out the gaps in those M&O networks. But to be able to do that in a way and using a neutral host model, whereby we're starting to talk about true cell phone towers in the sky. There are some MNOs that are concerned. They're concerned about, the first type of sovereignty of concern is customer sovereignty, whereby they have customers on their networks, and they don't want to let loose or let control of those customers and their data, as they would potentially roam off a terrestrial network onto a space network and then back onto a mobile network to be able to get extended coverage or to fill in gaps. So the neutral host model is an increasingly powerful conversation to talk about using dynamic beamforming to be able to allow people to maintain control of their network and just be able to have that service filled in by, like I say, literally true cell phone towers in the sky. That's also playing into this sovereignty push that we're seeing around the world in terms of countries also caring about sovereignty. MNOs care about customer sovereignty and controlling the relationship with their customer. Countries have an extended version of that, whereby they would like to see their citizens or their companies and businesses work with their domestic communications providers and be able to maintain that sovereignty over that relationship, and not have those customers or those businesses roam off of domestic networks onto a network that's owned and operated in another country. and the variability and relationships that can come with that geopolitically, especially during this time. And so that's causing an increased interest nationally as countries care about this sort of neutral host model in terms of its potential for both the MNOs to maintain customer sovereignty and nations to be able to maintain national sovereignty over their communications. So it's exciting. MDA Aurora is a product that is supporting the need for speed in the SNOs that are really in a competitive situation for direct-to-device services, and the need for sovereignty and security in folks that are maybe more interested in a neutral host model to be able to maintain that moving forward. The security and sovereignty conversation is also picking up pace in the Milcom side of the house. This satellite show has now got a mil and military governance sort of track within it now, with more gaining in popularity. The MDA Aurora is proving to be very beneficial in those conversations as well. We're seeing that in Canada, where MDA Space is headquartered, with a new strategic agreement to be able to provide communication or space-based and enhanced space communication services, Polar, for Arctic communications for the military. This project is just starting to move out, while other countries are starting to pick up pace and wanting to ask questions about how can the next generation of digital communication satellites be able to enhance their military operations in their country. So it's extending to other nations as well. Lastly, is interesting, we were able to leverage these advances in digital satellites and high volume production in the communications part of the satellite business into the Earth observation side of the house. And to be able to look at, being able to leverage the capacity that's coming off the communications volumes and the digital technologies that are coming off the next generation of digital satellites, and bringing those into the next generation of Earth observation satellites. Again, that word sovereignty and security coming back into play in terms of the theme of 2026. So it's an exciting time. With this technology, with this high volume production, we're able to deliver now, which is really exciting for the company. Like was mentioned in the opening remarks, the 4,000 people that get to work for MDA Space. But it's really exciting for the future. With these things in our hands now, we can really plan out roadmaps and map out the way ahead. Being vertically integrated down to the chip level to be able to talk about MDA Aurora version 2 and MDA Aurora version 3, and be able to look at high volume manufacturing rates and be able to look at what we can pull off of those into parallel products for communications and for Earth observation. And to be able to really leverage a return on the $1 billion we've invested in our business in the last 5 years. So it's pretty exciting to see it all be able to come into fruition. So it's nice to be able to see you again. It's nice to be able to provide some opening remarks and give you a bit of an MDA Space update as the sponsors of lunch for the 3rd time in a row. I'll try to keep my job and be back here next year to give you the next update on where we're going. Enjoy your lunch and enjoy the conversation about Amazon Leo. Thanks very much.
Thank you to our sponsor, MDA Space. And now, Fireside Chat with Amazon's Vice President of Leo Business, Chris Weber.
I think we need a second round of applause for you, Chris. Round of applause, please.
Thank you. Thanks, Sarah.
So we've got a lot to pack in, and we've only got half an hour, so we'll try and get as much done as possible. But this is your first time at Satellite. Are you enjoying yourself?
I'm a rookie, yes. Thank you for having me. It's been fantastic.
And in terms of last year, and we made this joke up backstage, so I apologize in advance, but you were the artiste formerly known as Amazon Kuiper. So tell us about how we got to Amazon Leo, and really why you're entering this business and why it matters so much.
Yeah, terrific. Well, first of all, on the brand itself, we knew we had to make a change. Kuiper was a project name, and quite honestly, I don't know if you've heard, people had trouble pronouncing Kuiper. It was Kuiper, Cooper. It didn't resonate incredibly well globally, and so we needed to come up with something, and through lots of hard work, we came up with Leo. But I was asking you backstage, maybe I'll ask the audience. First of all, if you've seen the colors, does anybody know what color our brand is? Any guesses?
No one on the Amazon Leo table has their hand up.
What was your guess?
My guess was purple.
Purple, and everyone says purple. The color actually, we have a lot of meaning in the brand. The color is actually krypton. Krypton is the color our thruster in space fires. It's what it looks like in space, so we decided to put some meaning there. Obviously, Leo gives us the nod to low Earth orbit. And then we've done some other things. Even the thruster, if you see it activated online, the O in Leo is the thruster, and then it becomes into a still O. And then we have an aurora in the brand, and the aurora, it'll look like zeros and ones is probably what you think, data coming from satellites to the antenna. It's actually, if you look at it really small, it's LEOs in their first Leo. So we put a lot of work in it. We're very excited about the brand and excited to launch it overall. In terms of why we started Amazon Leo, or at the time it was Kuiper, there's a number of things. Maybe I would start with, I've only been at Amazon a little under 2 years. And Amazon, you've probably heard, has these leadership principles. There's 16 of them. And when you start, you get a crash course on leadership principles. And the two I would say resonate really well with me when you think about Leo is the think big leadership principle, and then customer obsession. And I will tell you, these leadership principles are not things that show up on a slide or a piece of paper. They are lived every day, from the way we invent and innovate products and services, the way we hire, the way we run the business. Everything is integral in those leadership principles. And so with Amazon Leo, the problem, or I would think about it on the positive side, the opportunity that we're trying to solve is hundreds of millions of people, businesses and governments don't have access to reliable, high-speed, secure connectivity. And so we felt like there's an incredible opportunity. And so I think there's nothing more that speaks to those leadership principles about customer obsession in terms of what we're solving, and think big on Amazon Leo. And you can look at it. Amazon's done this many times before. It did it with Amazon.com, the fulfillment network, the work we've done to get products at scale to consumers quicker, AWS building a cloud service that people could spin up compute in a very quick time frame, and even with like Alexa Plus, the AI personal assistant. So these are things Amazon's done before in terms of innovation, and so that is what we're trying to do. And then the scenarios to solve, I would say probably one of the biggest enjoyments I have in my job is talking to customers and hearing use cases for this connectivity, and it is super broad, whether it's home in rural America needing connectivity or faster connectivity. It could be cargo shipping in the middle of the ocean, offshore energy, critical defense, first responders, et cetera. All those use cases are things that we're trying to solve, and so we're building Leo for those use cases, whether it's primary or backup for resiliency, whether it's for that cargo ship, whether it's for that home in rural America. Doing all those things and more is the mission of Amazon Leo.
And we'll touch on, in terms of what makes Amazon Leo unique on the market shortly, but from what you've been saying and just where we're looking at the space industry in terms of it's no longer just a place to go, it's a place to do business, and it's an extension of life on Earth, would you say that Amazon Leo really is just a natural fit for the Amazon brand as a whole?
It really is, and there's a lot of things that we can bring. I mean, if you just look at the innovation and invention that we're doing, certainly leveraging things from within Amazon. Now, it's different doing that in space, but everything from building the satellites to building the ground gateway infrastructure to the customer terminals to the commerce systems, et cetera, all those things are unique in terms of the way Amazon's bringing that to market.
So it's a natural next step then?
Absolutely.
And in terms of how you got now, the successes you've seen, and what's next, can you just talk us through kind of like that journey?
Yeah. So first of all, our first production launch was last April. So we put 27 satellites up on an Atlas V rocket. Today we have over 200 satellites in orbit, so we're feeling quite good on that. I would say there's still a lot of work to be done. So in the first 12 months, we had 11 launches in the first 12 months. I think someone was telling me last week that's the fastest of any constellation in the first year. The good news is we expect to double that in the next 12 months, so very aggressive schedule to accelerate satellite production, the launches, et cetera. We have over 100 launches under contract today. We're using 4 different providers, ULA, SpaceX, Arianespace, and then New Glenn. So we have about just over 200 in space. We have over 200 on the ground. So our manufacturing facility, I was just there last week, was just blown away by the production number of satellites coming off the line. The good news is we have over 200 in our processing facility at the Cape, ready and stacked to be launched, over 6 different launch vehicles, just waiting for those to be picked up and delivered to space. The good news is Sunday we have another launch with the Atlas V rocket. We'll talk about that as well. And then in April we have 2 others. So really good progress, tons of work to be done, and a very aggressive schedule over the next 12 months to accelerate.
And in terms of this aggressive schedule, I mean, Amazon as a company as a whole has been a huge disruptor. Do you see that kind of like Amazon way of thinking enabling Amazon Leo to bring something unique and really to disrupt this space, no pun intended?
Yeah, so I think like one of the things we look at as we're pre-market is, one is what is the opportunity, 2 is our value proposition resonating. And again, we're building a network and constellation to serve consumers, to serve business and government. And so what I would tell you, one is the signals we get from prospective customers or customers who have signed is incredibly strong. And so we think about differentiation in really 3 or 4 different ways. The first one, we talk a lot about this, is performance. So again, from a performance perspective, we'll be able to deliver a gigabit on the downlink, which is industry leading. And more importantly, on the uplink, we've committed to being able to deliver 400 gigabits per second on the uplink. That is so critical when we talk to customers, not just the downlink, but the uplink, whether it's high-res imagery or video, telemetry, massive data sets. That uplink is as important as the downlink. So performance is very big there. We announced our Ultra antenna that can deliver that. It's full duplex, and so performance will be a real differentiator. The second one, when you look particularly for business and government, is the security side of things. So we'll have advanced encryption across the network, AE256 encryption, and then we'll be able to offer private networking on top of any of our plans. And what that essentially allows you to do is go from your antenna to the satellite into your AWS cloud infrastructure or into your own private data centers without ever touching the internet. And so that security part we think is a real differentiator. The third one, particularly for government and business customers, is how do we think about it as enterprise grade. So if you think about what Amazon Web Services built for customers, we're doing the same thing on Amazon Leo in the way we support customers, the way we do installation, the way we sign up for commitments, et cetera. All those things, I would call it an enterprise grade service built from the ground up. And then the fourth one is what I would say is just the things you would expect from Amazon, the ease of use, the affordability, those type things, the value-added services. I think there's a lot we can bring to market. Private networking on the AWS side is an example of that for business and government. But those are the things that we see as differentiation, and we're getting really strong signals in the market that those resonate.
And in terms of connectivity from Leo, some might say there is a new gold rush. What would you say to that? Would you compare it to the internet of the 1990s? There's a lot of players and we're going to lose some, or how do you feel like you can compete in this market? And I know you touched on that slightly.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting concept, but maybe push back a little bit on gold rush. First of all, as people know, this is not for the faint of heart. The amount of invention that's required, innovation, skill sets, investment, massive. We said we will spend $10 billion to get this initiative off the line. And so it's incredibly complex. And then you have to have really long-term thinking and patience. We've been at this for 8 years already. And so all of those things, I think, in the difficulty of it, make it quite hard in that area. I would say, first of all, the opportunity, there's plenty of opportunity, more than just one constellation. And so we see plenty of opportunity there. I think particularly from a customer perspective, competition is good, all of those things. But it really takes the investment, the invention, the long-term patience to deliver this. But we're committed to it through and through. We're on an acceleration path and very excited to get to market.
And talking about your acceleration path, you don't have your own rocket as yet, but you do have multiple launch providers, and you might potentially also be working with Blue Origin. Do you see a future where Amazon Leo and Blue, Blue's the main launch provider, and how are you kind of like mitigating the fact that you don't currently have your own single-use rocket?
Yeah. So the way we think about it is it's not a single rocket. We need rockets. And so there's an advantage. We deal with 4 launch providers, ULA, SpaceX, Arianespace, and Blue Origin, all 4 of those. And that gives us some real advantage. Now there's some complexity there because you have different dispensers and fairings that you have to work with, but it does give us flexibility. And again, like I said before, we have over 100 launches under contract, so a massive investment for us. And so we're doing everything we can with those 4 providers to accelerate, to get more launches, et cetera. As an example, as you know, Vulcan right now is paused, and that was one of our launches or launch providers that we're going to do. But we've been working with ULA to accelerate some of the Atlas launches. So again, that gives us flexibility to have that. The satellites, if you look at those, or the dispensers. In fact, I think you'll see some images here. A couple of cool things that we've done is the Atlas V rocket, where we have our initial launches had 27 satellites on there. The one that launches Sunday, we've done some work with ULA, where now we're getting 2 additional satellites on there, so it'll go from 27 now to 29. So we're looking at any opportunity to utilize that space on the dispenser in the fairing there. So that gives us flexibility. And then I think you'll see another image of all of them stacked from the Atlas V with 27 to 29. You can see the Ariane 6 there, again, where we launched, I think it was about 6 weeks ago, where we had 32 on there. The Vulcan, which will give us 40 plus, and then New Glenn, which is also a very big investment for us and big bet, getting somewhere in excess of 48 satellites there. You can see how those stack up and sort of the scale of it. It's really spectacular if you're down at the payload facility in the Cape to see these. Right now we have 6 of these dispensers stacked ready to go, ready for our launch providers to pick up. So we look at it as rockets. We think the diversity there helps, and we continue to look at how we can accelerate getting the satellites into orbit.
Do you think that any time be a point in the future where Amazon LEO actually partners solely with Blue Origin and that comes under the Amazon bracket?
I think, look, Blue Origin's a significant partner for us, but we think there's value in the diversity, and again, it gives us access to more launches. And so right now, I think it's a play to say we like all 4 of them, we want to do that, and we want to leverage them to accelerate our constellation.
And in terms of where you are now, what kind of, I know you mentioned the 100 launches, but what type of launch cadence are you looking at over the next few years, and how are you going to ensure that you stay on schedule? Yeah,
so we did, I think I was saying earlier, we've done 11 launches in the first 12 months. I think that's the fastest of what I heard the other day, fastest of any constellation in the first year. We expect to more than double that in the next 12 months, so very aggressive there, starting with Sunday with the 29 on the Atlas V. We have 2 launches in April, and then you'll see that accelerate and get into the heavy lift vehicles as well. So no one's more committed financially. We have 100 of these under contract. We're trying to look at every avenue to accelerate those and get the constellation into orbit.
And what is it, your background's in technology, you haven't got a traditional space background, although I would argue all jobs are going to become space jobs. What do you think you're able to bring from your background into Amazon LEO, and why is that so important to have this diversity in skill sets?
Yeah, I mean, I would say still the training wheels are on. There's so much to learn in the space business, the connectivity business, and so I would say, unfortunately, I've probably given less than I've gotten, and so it's been a massive learning curve. The one thing that I feel very comfortable with at Amazon is this customer obsession, and that is job number 1, 2, and 3 for us, is to ensure we have a world-class service that is differentiated in the marketplace. And so everything leading up to our general availability, it's not just about how do we get satellites in orbit, it's the ground infrastructure, it's testing the network, it's ensuring we're producing CTs, which we're producing our antennas at scale now. It's building the commerce system, the features, and making sure that end-to-end business is there. And so from that perspective, it's really about the customer and ensuring end-to-end that service is world-class when we launch it, and it's differentiated. And I would tell you, so lots of work going on internally, still more to do, but as we test those differentiators and value proposition with the customers, the signals are very good. In fact, we've had some announcements, JetBlue, AT&T, And I would just say stay tuned. We have some really big announcements on the way. And again, another validation of do we have something differentiated and is it being validated in the market?
And can you give us a time frame of when we can expect those announcements?
The announcements, I would say ongoing. So we have some very big ones in the works. And so I would say that's sooner than later on those, and look forward to sharing those with people as we announce them.
And you mentioned this customer obsession, which is, of course, really defined the success of Amazon as a brand, where Amazon Leo came from. But in terms of existing Amazon products, are we going to see a future where everyday users can get Amazon Leo integrated into Amazon Leo products? And do you think that's something which goes to even further strengthen your place and position in the marketplace?
It's a great question. One is Amazon Leo has to be a great platform for high speed, low latency, secure connectivity. That's job number one, and that's what we're building. But as you talk about the assets inside Amazon, I would say it's a treasure trove for us to bring new value, new experiences to customers. You can just take on the government and business side, the private networking, where we're leveraging the infrastructure from AWS, again, where you can go round trip and never touch the internet and have that go into your AWS cloud infrastructure or your own private data center. That's a great example where 1 + 1 equals something more than 2. Certainly as we look on the business government side and the consumer side, there's lots of assets inside the company that we look at and say, how do we create new value, differentiated experiences? And so I would say we're sort of, in a baseball analogy, in inning 1 of a 9-inning game, and there's lots we can do to bring that value to customers.
And what excites you most on a personal level about doing this? Because your background's so unique, and the possibilities with connectivity are just, in terms of everything from security through to connecting the developing world and the impact on education. What excites you, and what does it mean?
You know, I was telling you backstage, you asked me, what made me come over to Amazon, and I had been at Microsoft for about 25 years, amazing company, and then I was at a company called GitLab before Amazon Leo, and somebody had called about Amazon Leo, and I said, I've only been at GitLab for 11 months, timing's not right, et cetera. In fact, I gave them some names to call. And then, one thing led to another, and they asked if I just have some additional conversations. As I did, the more I got into it, I was saying, this is the biggest, most ambitious, boldest mission I've ever seen, which is to bring connectivity, high-speed connectivity, secure, reliable connectivity to underserved, unserved areas, whether it's consumer, business, and government. And building this from the ground up, it was very bold and ambitious. And I was telling my wife, I said, I think these things only come along every 100 years. And I said to her, I'm almost 100 years old, so I think it's the opportunity to take. And so, coming in, I wasn't confused. I was like, this is going to be the most ambitious thing. It's going to be the hardest thing. It'll take more work than I've ever done. But it ultimately will be the most energizing and rewarding when we deliver that service to our customers. And I would tell you, almost 2 years in, there's no doubt it's the hardest, most difficult thing I've ever done. I've certainly put in more hours than I ever have. But the signals we're getting from customers are super strong, and I'm confident when we launch this, it will be the most rewarding, and certainly it's been the most energizing thing I've ever done in my career. So that's what got me excited. I would tell you, everyone in Leo, they are missionaries to this business. I mean, they came here because they believe in the mission. They want to provide connectivity. It has so many profound impacts, whether it's to government, whether it's to businesses or consumers. And so I'm on that mission. It's been amazing. We have a ton of work to do, but can't wait to deliver that service for customers.
And talking about impacts, and as we look ahead to the next few years and a longer time frame, what do you believe the impacts from Amazon Leo could be to life on Earth? Because we go to space to benefit life on Earth, and Amazon Leo has this great opportunity.
Yeah. So I think starting out, just there's so many use cases. And again, use cases obviously we thought of when we were incubating Amazon Leo, but we get new use cases every day that are really inspiring, whether again, it's individuals or homes or families who just do not have connectivity in very remote parts. I talk about rural America outside of the US, some of the most remote parts around the world, being able to bring connectivity to them, which gives them access to education, to healthcare, to financial services that they've never had before. I mean, like completely awe-inspiring scenarios. From a business perspective, whether it's a factory in a remote location, whether that's primary connectivity, resiliency is really on the rise, both in government and businesses, ensuring they have resilient infrastructure from terrestrial systems. And so there's a lot that can be done there. And then anything that's remote, I talk about cargo ships, offshore energy, if anybody flew on planes, providing amazing connectivity. There's so many areas. That's job one as we launch this, and again, having a world-class service. And then as we start to expand, it's really about, because where we'll initially launch is in the northern and southern hemispheres, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But then once we launch, as we get more and more satellites up, more coverage, we'll come inward, so we'll have geographic expansion. So many more markets and countries to expand to. And then new scenarios as you get more coverage. Portability comes into play, both for consumers, business, government. Mobility, so anything that moves in the mobility space, whether it's aviation, maritime, land mobility. So there's real expansion opportunities there. And so just getting the service out and running is job number one, and then we have so much work to do to expand that geographically, expand the capabilities and features that our customers are asking for.
And I'll follow up with it because you mentioned it. In terms of northern and southern launches, what is the reasoning behind that? And in terms of positioning, is that what it's to do with?
Yeah, so the way the satellite constellation, you have to have a band of satellites that are 100% coverage in a certain geographic area. So we will launch in the northern and southern hemispheres, where we'll first have 100% satellite connectivity, where you can start to offer service in that latitude band. And then as we get more and more satellite coverage, that'll expand inward to equatorial regions, polar shell, et cetera, which enables things like the mobility side, aviation, et cetera. So that's the reason for it. I assume you're going to ask me when we're going to launch service.
Oh, I just wrote that down.
Oh, okay. So I'll jump ahead on that. One is we're doing so much work right now on getting the satellites up. Again, I talk about having 200 up. We have more than 200 already manufactured, stacked, ready to go. We're accelerating our manufacturing. So nothing happens without those satellites. Second is the ground infrastructure that we have. What I would say in those northern and southern hemispheres that we're going to initially launch in, all our ground infrastructure is installed and operationally working. So we're good to go there, but we'll continue to expand our ground infrastructure for those expansion markets, et cetera. And then our customer terminals. In fact, I think last time Amazon Leo, which was Kuiper, was here, I think Dave Limp, who now is CEO of Blue Origin, I think he's the one that disclosed our customer antennas here, which was a prototype at the time. We're now at mass scale producing those antennas, so when we go live. And then just the networking side of things, the testing that's going on. We have lots of people, both internally, we have our enterprise and government customers starting to test that end-to-end to make sure it's performing the way described. And then the last piece is just all the things we're doing around commerce, fulfillment, all those things to make sure it's a world-class service end-to-end. So that is the work that's being done right now. But I would tell you, without getting into specifics, we're not years away from launching service, we're months away. Oh, wow. And so what I would say is just stay tuned on that. We're working very hard, we're trying to accelerate things, but very excited to bring that service to our customers.
And in terms of rollout, are you going to start with a particular customer to begin with? How is your rollout protocol going to look?
So the way we'll do it again is in those latitude bands, the northern hemisphere and southern hemisphere. And that will be across consumers, government, and business. Now, again, it would relate to those customers in those latitude bands, but that's where we'll start, and then we'll very rapidly expand our coverage as we get more and more satellites into orbit.
And just quickly, I wanted to touch on a point you made slightly earlier in terms of ground infrastructure. How much work is needed to be done on the ground, and is that going to go alongside the rollout as well?
Yeah, there's nothing that is easy in this, and that's what I was saying when you said gold rush. Like, it just takes so much invention, investment, I want to say patience, but I don't think we have patience internally. We're trying to accelerate everything, but just long-term thinking. I feel very good. Our satellite production is accelerating. Our launches are going to accelerate, double there. Our ground infrastructure is well ahead of our service, so we feel really good there. But again, we'll continue to expand there. Our satellite production, or our antenna production, is now scaling, and then just building all the systems end-to-end for everything from customers ordering the service to fulfilling it, supporting customers, et cetera. All that is the work that we're doing, and end-to-end testing. Because again, at the end of the day, the way we're wiring ourselves internally is the single thing that matters is we're going to create a world-class service that our customers love and expect when you put Amazon on that brand.
That sounds great. And in terms of future-proofing Amazon Leo, I know we're looking at the future, but I think that's important as well. Are there already plans in place about how you can evolve with this, particularly with AI and machine learning? How do you intend to future-proof Amazon Leo?
Yeah. Again, I would say this is such a long-term journey for us. I mean, just, again, we're delivering our Gen 1 constellation, Gen 2 design well on the way in terms of the constellation there. And then the future-proofing is really how do we think about value-added services? First of all, geographic expansion, number one. New services, so things like portability and mobility as you get that coverage. And then I think you talked about it at the beginning, which is how do you think about all these assets within Amazon and bringing new experiences to customers, whether it's on the government side and business side with AWS and that infrastructure, and then all the assets that we have for the consumer, families, et cetera, where it's not just world-class connectivity, it's connectivity with other user experiences. So we're doing a lot of that I think future-proofs us, not only from we launch, but the growth path that we have.
And just, we've got time for probably maybe 1.5 questions, but in terms of American leadership in space, and it's a key topic which is going to be discussed all this week, how is Amazon Leo, particularly with your government customers, helping to ensure that American leadership continues and succeeds?
Yeah, first of all, it's super important. And so we're very focused on that. We're working with our government in terms of ensuring the U.S. continues to have leadership in space. I think we have an amazing foundation in the U.S. for what we're doing there, and so we'll continue to work on that. It's going to be critical. Even things like the modernization of launch infrastructure has been huge, not just for us, but others there. And so we'll continue to push on those things in terms of making sure the U.S. has that leadership position and continues to expand that.
And just one final question. I hope you're okay with me asking this. We have got younger people within the audience, and it's great to have
Why
someone.
are you not looking at me when you say that?
We can look. But in terms of your career and your experience, what would be your advice to the young people attending this conference and to get into this business? Maybe they want to be involved with Amazon Leo. What advice can you give them?
Well, if you're interested, just send me an email. It's xchriswee@amazon.com, so happy to recruit anytime. Look, I think it's the same thing I tell my kids. I have my kids are in their 20s. And to me, whether it's the space field, whether it's satellites, whether it's rockets, whether it's high tech or something outside, I think finding the thing that you're most passionate about, because if you find that thing, I think that's the way it works. If it doesn't come from that position of passion, I think it makes it very hard. Having said that, I put lots of advertisements into my kids about high tech and space. And we were talking backstage. I mean, space is booming right now, particularly in the U.S. There's never been a better time in this industry to join. And you can do some amazing things. And I would say the level of invention and innovation and speed that operates, I don't think there's a better industry and better time to join it. So, and I would say that whether young or old. I mean, I'm much older, and I found something that is like completely rejuvenated my passion and energy, and I don't feel like I'm working. I feel like I'm doing something as a missionary, and it comes from that place of passion.
Something that makes a difference.
Absolutely.
Well, Chris Webber, we are at time, but you are certainly full of passion, and this has been a fantastic conversation, a fantastic way to start SATShow week, and another round of applause, please, for Chris Webber.
Thank you very much. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.